Pepe Escobar is an independent journalist, a geopolitical analyst, and an international superstar, as anyone who's ever seen or read him already knows. And I'm glad at last he's back on the mother of all talk shows. Pepe, there's so much to talk to you about tonight. I do want to touch on NATO, whose birthday it is today. But first I must ask you what you think of the reports that Iran's retaliation is imminent within minutes, within hours, and no more than 48 of those hours. Do you think that's accurate? And what kind of retaliation would be at the hands or at the disposal of the Iranian leadership?
Well, George, first of all, it's an enormous pleasure to be talking to you, member of parliament, and I would say, and for me, you are the real prime minister. Well,
thank you.
Coming back to your question, it's what the CIA is saying. The CIA doesn't exactly have top quality inside intel in the corridors of power in Tehran. The Iranians are extremely careful. They don't want this to... The trap, in fact, is to get them into a no-holds-barred war against Israel. They'll never do that. There may be pinpointed drone and missile attacks, and not necessarily coming from the IRGC or the Quds Force, from Iran itself, through their enormous network in what we call the axis of resistance in West Asia. This could happen within the next 48 hours, or this could happen next week, or this could happen 1 month from now. They carefully calibrate their responses, and they usually are asymmetrical and they are not immediate. So the CIA, maybe they want to steal a headline for the next 24 hours, 48 hours, but this is not going to happen. The Iranians are too much sophisticated for that. And the fact that Ayatollah Khamenei himself said that there will be a response, it's up in the air, and it's up to them to decide. It's going to be at the time of their own choosing.
It did seem, though, to be a promise of direct response from the Iranian leader. In the past, as you say, other parts of the axis of resistance have struck, as it were, not on behalf of Iran, but in response to attacks on Iran. My reading of the Ayatollah's words were that this would be a direct Iranian response. What do you think?
Well, this direct response can be provided indirectly, if I may say so, because everybody, from Ayatollah Khamenei to their own Security Council, everybody knows that, number one, this is a trap set up by the Netanyahu government. Second, nobody wants a direct confrontation, including the United States. Number three, they have multiple myriad options to provide really, really hardcore responses indirectly in waves if they decide to do so. So that's the key point. Another thing that is very, very important, George, this was an attack on BRICS. Was not only an attack on Iran. Iran is a part of BRICS, and Iran is part of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and Iran has strategic relationships with both Russia and China. This is extremely serious, extremely serious. And the fact that I just came back from Moscow, I spent two extra months in Moscow. I'm here in Europe for a while, and I'll be back to Russia soon. There are behind the scenes elaborations and consultations steadily all the time between the Iranian leadership and the Russian leadership. I am absolutely sure that the Iranian response is not that they will tell the Russians or the Chinese what they're going to do, but there will be consultations, there will be deliberations, the three of them. Okay, because this, once again, this is an attack on BRICS and the SCO. So Israel attacked, not only Israel destroyed the Vienna Convention, Israel attacked the two most important multilateral organizations that are working towards multipolarity, the expanded BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So it's like this is an attack on all of them, and an attack that could happen to embassies and consulates belonging to all these nations that are part of BRICS and SCO. That's what it makes it so extremely serious.
Turning to Gaza, what's your reading on the, first of all, presence of 3 British military fellows, all of them employed by an intelligence company in England? That's interesting in itself. And Israel's cold-blooded murder of them, now claimed to have been an error, but very difficult to see how you could make 3 such errors in 3 different cars in 3 different strikes.
You're absolutely right, George. This was a 3-tap assassination. So, they targeted separately these 3 targets and, attacked them in sequence. So it was obvious. Everybody knows that this was premeditated. And obviously we have, for the first time maybe in 6 months, Tel Aviv saying, oh, no, maybe this was a mistake. We're going to investigate. We're going to investigate ourselves. And you have Tony Blinken once again, let Israel investigate themselves. I would say that the most toxic element in all that is that not only we have this happening immediately after the massacre at Al-Shifa Hospital. Al-Shifa Hospital was responsible for over 30% of health care all across Gaza. When they killed in cold blood, massacred in cold blood, and had tanks running over bodies of over 400 people, including, medical staff, which is completely absurd. Not only did they completely destroy the hospital, but they kill everybody inside, including the medical corps. And this disappeared completely from the news, by the way, because immediately afterwards we had the attack on the World Kitchen people. And at the same time, we had the destruction of the Vienna Convention, the strike in a 3rd country, Syria, of the embassy of a sovereign country, Iran. So in a matter of less than 48 hours, Israel simply destroyed everything about the so-called rules-based international order and proved to the world that we are all living under a absolutely zero rules international disorder. This is what we are all subjected to. And the worst part is that in their biblical psychopathology, let's put it this way, they still think that they can get away with it, with anything. And even what you were mentioning only a few minutes ago, the send-some option. If they apply the send-some option, they still think they can get away with it. It's beyond absurd, everything that is happening. And it's unfortunately, we're all living under these conditions, and we're all subjected to their follies and their serial follies. And there's nobody anywhere capable of stopping them.
Turning to another folie de grandeur of ours, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. I see where that, as you described them, that block of Norwegian wood, Stoltenberg, is not only still there, I thought he was out already, but he's not only still there, he's still singing the same hymns from the same hymn sheet that he was 2 years ago, vis-a-vis the Ukraine, when everybody knows that the war has irrevocably turned to Russia's advantage. He's still saying, we have to show the Russians they cannot possibly win, even while they're overwhelmingly winning. Is he a fool or is he a knave?
Excellent, George. Well, I would say it's at the current juncture, a fool, and not even a fool on the hill, which have a few poetic connotations, as we all remember. Just a plain fool. He's being paid for that. His salary, his hefty salary with hefty pension is all about that. So he keeps repeating the same script, which his press office basically is the same set of sentences that they rearrange press conference after press conference, because it's always the same terms, it's always the same intonation, it's always the same discombobulated performance, and his, between commas, plan of having $107 billion plan to arm Ukraine for the next 5 years. This is completely absurd when you see what's happening on the ground in Donbass, all across the front lines, and you even have rabid Russophobic think tanks saying that the front may collapse in the next few weeks or in the next 2 to 3 months, in fact, before summer. Everybody knows that. I was in Avdiivka less than a month ago, George. I actually went to see completely destroyed, which is something unimaginable for anyone in the West to even contemplate. We're going to have a series of Avdiivkas for the next few weeks and months, because the Russian artillery that is being concentrated on I would say a relatively small part of the whole front line is absolutely astounding. Not to mention Mr. Fat Guy, the Fab 1500 bombs, which are, when you see what the Ukrainian soldiers are saying in Ukrainian military channels, and this is picked up by Russian military channels, they are absolutely terrified. Even the noise. Not only the crater, and not only the fact that this destroys everything in an enormous rate, but the noise itself. So it's really a total highway to hell, all the way to Kharkov and all the halfway to Kiev as well. And when you compare this to what Putin, Patrushev, Medvedev, Shoigu, are saying at the moment. And now even Bortnikov, the head of the FSB, Bortnikov never speaks in public. The first time he spoke in public in months was after the Crocus City Hall terrorist attack. And basically he said, look, we know who did it, essentially. And that's all you need to hear from Bortnikov, because don't mess with the top guys at the FSB. They will go all the way and they will get to you. And that's why Budanov in Kiev, the head of the SPU, they are terrified, because they know they are on the list. And Russia, for all practical purposes, now is designating Ukraine as a terror state. They already sent documentation to Kiev. Look, you need to hand over everyone who's responsible for terror attacks against the Russian Federation. They know the response in advance by Kiev. So then they will, the special military operation, the status will change to counter-terrorist operation. It's going to be a CTO. And they are going for the jugular, which is what Russian public opinion. I was there only a few days ago, and this is something that for the first time you feel in Moscow, not only corridors of power, but talking to average people, businessmen, etc. Now, we have to finish this up. That's it. So now there is a red line, and the 87% of the population, let's put it this way, supports Putin.
So I was intending in Parliament next week, when it returns from its very long Easter holidays. I think the British Parliament celebrates the Western Easter and the Eastern Easter, because we seem to have been on holiday for so long. But if and when Parliament eventually does reassemble, it was my plan to begin agitation for negotiations to end this war. Would I be wasting my time? Is the die already cast? Are they going to fight to the last drop of Ukrainian and Russian blood?
Well, George, the problem is this administration in Washington, this is a war to the last Ukrainian. We all know that. And Stoltenberg basically relays to the rest of the European Union and to the rest of the collective West, let's put it this way, the orders from the hegemonic power. That's it. The problem is the only thing that they think about from now on is the elections in November, which they know they're going to lose. And they're trying to revert the tide. For that, there would need to be some sort of a face-saving exit, a face-saving ceasefire, etc. The Russians already said, look, it's going to be decided in the battlefield. And now even Lavrov, a gentleman, best foreign minister on the planet, he's been saying that out loud. It will be decided in the battlefield. Everybody knows our conditions. And if we need a buffer zone of 300, 400 kilometers, let it be. We don't want NATO side by side with the borders of the Russian Federation. Everybody in Washington knows that, but they simply cannot accept it. So there won't be a ceasefire because the Russians are going to impose the conditions of a ceasefire. And now that they have the possibility, nobody's saying that they're going to do it, that they have the possibility of a massive offensive in summer, or they can have the possibility of breaching the front lines and see the beginning of all the front line crumbling, which is something that can happen within the next few months as well. They are not in a hurry at all. They have the Kremlin and the Security Council, they have a popular mandate to win this any way they see fit. They are about to designate Ukraine as a terror state, which means that they're going after a terrorist organization. So they're not in a hurry. So when you have it all together, when you have the whole chessboard together, there is absolutely nothing that Washington can offer to the Russians to, let's say, placate them. But what you plan to do, George, is
Pepe
at least it's very good because they listen to you. You should say it in Parliament what you just said you're going to say.
God bless you, and thanks as always for your wisdom, your global sweep of knowledge. Thank you, Pepe.
God
Escobar.
bless you, George.
Thank you, brother.